What is going on in the world, Lubie? I mean, good morning, people. It's good to have you guys with us. Destined to go to the racetrack later on today. And Mayo's good. I mean, he keeps bringing those Friday and Saturday forms. Although, one thing I find, and I love Tony Scretto, but he always ends up taking like the Saturday racing form.
Oh, does he? Does he even bet? Why does he need the Saturday one? Is he betting on Saturday?
I don't know. I mean, is that just a byproduct of being in the media forever, where whatever they're giving away, you're taking one? Like, even though you have like zero use for it.
What do you mean?
Is he watching FanDuel? I don't think so. That's not Tony's
so
bag.
I have no interest at all in even watching any of it, and I almost grab it every week.
Yeah. It's insane, isn't it? Right? You wouldn't know how to read it anyway, right? I mean, look, it's no shame if you have never looked at a racing form. You look at it, it's like, what the fuck is this? That's probably the worst move that you can make in any kind of relationship. Try to teach your girlfriend to read the racing form. Not that she's incapable. No. Now, here's the thing. If she already knows everything about the form and she's pointing out things to you on the first date,
that's great.
How do you feel about that woman?
Yeah, it's amazing.
But is she ever going to buy your bullshit when she's already surpassed you in terms of her degenerate levels, which would be the ultimate test? Because I like that when, you're with somebody. Now, this is only in my fantasies, Libby. Where you're with a woman at the track and she says, can you believe this Christoph Clement, man?
Oh, yeah.
This is the second time he's put blinkers on this horse, and guess what happened both times? Finished last. Then he has the barn send in a bunch of money, so the horse is 4 to 5 every flash, and you know what happens with 4 to 5 favorites. People believe in them.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here, the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, along with one Mike Lubitz. Thank you so much for tuning in today, as we will feature later on in the program to give us a little local perspective here. South Florida sports scene certainly is a buzz after activities of yesterday. In fact, imagine if you went outside. I haven't taken my walk yet on A1A, Lubie, but I'm thinking there may be some chalk outlines there. Dead bodies just strewn along the streets of South Florida today after what appeared to be a devastating punch to the gut of the Miami Dolphins championship chances that opened up or unveiled yesterday when free agency started in the National Football League. Two of Miami's guys going for just mega money, the second and third highest paid contracts that were offered out in free agency in terms of amount of money overall, went to former members of the Miami Dolphins. Christian Wilkins gets $110 million on a 4-year deal from the Las Vegas Raiders, and Robert Hunt, a guard. And it seemed like when Hunt wasn't injured, the word was, "Hey, yeah, that guy's pretty good. Robert Hunt, he's a decent player." Because he wasn't one of Chris Greer's failures as a draft pick, even though first year or so, I guess he looked okay, but had developed into a reasonably good. Now, is that trying to make it real compared to what the old Les McCann thing, where you're thinking this guy's a really good lineman only because the other guys really suck?
No, I think Robert Hunt was good, but what's funny is the Dolphins' offensive line wasn't stellar last year, but it wasn't a sieve. Robert Hunt barely played last year, and they had no problem filling his position. The guy that they lost last year that showed a differentiation in their level of play was Connor Williams. When Connor Williams was in, their offensive line was as good as any in football. When Connor Williams was out, their offensive line struggled. Well, they went and signed a center yesterday. So that's the thing is Dave Hyde, who we're going to have on with us, wrote, I didn't get to read it because, again, like you, even though it's like 30 cents, for some reason I won't pay to get behind the page.
Oh, the online thing? No.
But
I really, there's something really different about just having a newspaper in your hand and being able to thumb through it and say, where's the racing page? But, it's nice to have everything sort of outlined in front of you, especially when you're taking a dump. I mean, that's just the way it is.
The paper's great. Online's great. But Hyde, I think, wrote a scathing indictment.
Oh, he did?
At least wrote something questioning Greer and the Dolphins. And if you were just around from, was it 9 in the morning until 1?
Yeah.
That was logical. If you had waited, like people like me were like, yeah, but if you look at these moves, it's a bunch of big money for guys that are not in that class in the NFL. Isn't that what good GMs do? Is they don't overpay for guys? So I'm like, is Greer actually being a good GM? It pains me to say that, but I'm like, let's see. And then he went and got guys that were better than the guys they lost at positions for less money than those guys were getting or ended up getting.
It's the old Patriot way, my friend.
Isn't that what good GMs do? I'm like, so everyone's like, oh, they're taking a step back. I'm like, are they? Or are they just realizing we weren't fucking winning with this team? Let's put the money elsewhere. Our linebackers sucked. Let's go get linebackers. Our offensive line was fine. Hunt didn't save them. So the Armstead thing I don't get, but if Armstead's going to take less money than if he misses games against not the end of the world. Jackson turned out to actually being one of the better right tackles somehow by the grace of God. Like,
boy, I mean, the question marks surrounding that guy were humongous. It was Matthew Lesko time with Austin Jackson. Everybody thought that he was a bust. It turned out Greer was getting credit in some of the
really
stuff that I was reading for hitting on that pick, which he did with Robert Hunt also and Christian Wilkins, two guys that were drafted by Chris Greer. Christian Wilkins had a great year last year. He was fantastic, although is he worth $25 million a year, 26? Don't know. If it's going to bust you, they were already up against a salary cap, as it seems like all teams are, for the most part, prior to the season and the free agent season getting underway. They had to part ways with some guys that you thought they might have liked to negotiate with. And, it would have been tough to match this kind of money while over the salary cap with this caliber of player. Although, I mean, face down in the gutter today, Lubie. If you went around South Florida today, there is an atmosphere, there was an air, there was a feeling of depression about the Miami Dolphins. It's been very deflating. And also, Andrew Van Ginkel, who was a very popular player because the guy just hustled.
Yes.
He was great. He had a weird name. He had a weird look to him with the hair. And yet, and he didn't look like some, a giant behemoth of a man that was just steamrolling people. It wasn't like you were looking at Ray Nitschke coming after quarterback or, any of the Dick Butkus type, some guy that was just going to Singletary eat you for breakfast. Scrawny guy that looked like he would be more equipped to be, selling sangria at Woodstock.
And he
out of a little pouch by the sip, one of those little things that you used to carry. I don't know. You never did that, Lubie, did you? That was like a really where you had the little wine carrier and you had a bunch of sangria in it. It was like kind of a cloth bag that was actually, what was, so some kind of thermos type of material that you had, like a canteen. It was a canteen that was wrapped up and you wore it with a little strap, and you usually had like Yago sangria in there. It was disgusting. But no, Van Ginkel looked like he came from some festival, didn't he? And yet, when he was coming off the end, he was pretty ferocious and very, very adept at making big plays at key times. So Andrew Van Ginkel goes in.
That wasn't crazy money. It was
that was 2 years, $20 million.
Was solid
Van Ginkel,
money,
Vikings.
but it was still a decent number. And what people don't realize is they have to pay Tua. They have Phillips, who, because he's always injured, it shouldn't be an automatic. But the thing is, when Phillips is healthy, he's as good as any edge in football. When Jaden Phillips is healthy, he is a game changer. And Wilkins was really good, but Wilkins until this year was 10 to 15 defensive tackle. This year, he got into that top 10 conversation-ish, but it's not on the same level of a Phillips, who they're going to have to give a contract. They just gave Chubb got a huge contract. Jalen Waddle, who was a top 10 receiver in the league, they're going to have to give a contract. They just gave Hill a big contract. Ramsey, they just restructured, but got a big, these are all guys that are top 3 to top 10 in their position. Those are the guys you give big money. Christian Wilkins is not. Even now, with the great year Wilkins had, it's still, you can name 10 or more defensive tackles if you know the game of football. Not me or you, whatever, fine. But people who know the game of football, they rattle off like 10 names before you get to Christian Wilkins. Okay, then how are you paying him more than Chris Jones if you can name 10 guys better than him? And the good organizations don't. Look at the teams that spent the money yesterday. Look, none of them are winners. The Detroit Lions are the closest thing to a winner. And again, until last year, the Lions were in the same group as the fucking Panthers, the Raiders, the Steelers now. Like, all these teams that spent yesterday are all teams that either missed the playoffs, or if they made it, no one really thought that they would go far except the Lions, who shocked the world. Like, the opening day of free agency is for the desperate. And the Dolphins used to be that team. The Dolphins would go and get Mike Wallace. The Dolphins would go and get Brandon Marshall. I don't like Chris Greer because I don't trust him drafting, but he's making the moves that the smart organizations do, because what he did do on that same day was go replace his center with one of the better centers in the league from one of the better offensive lines in the league for bargain basement money. What he did go and replace Jerome Baker, a linebacker people were crying about, even though he's fucking average and misses most of the season every year, who had a huge number, for less money from one of the best defenses in football, who was a big part of that defense, the linebacker they got from the Browns. These are the moves that winning organizations make. You got Ramsey to restructure his deal, giving you $20 million. You got Armstead, which is the only reason they're keeping him, to restructure his deal, giving you a crap ton of money. They've got like 6 guys yesterday to restructure deals so that they would have money. So they chose to not sign these people. Like, that's what good organizations do. They don't just, oh shit, we have to. No, like, we drafted them once.
Oh, you froze in the middle of this dissertation. That's horrendous, Lubie. Oh my God, you were on a roll. I'm trying to, and hopefully you'll snap back into this thing, and hopefully I'm still up and running. People, let me know, because I got a frozen Lubie on one side of the screen, as I imagine you do. Now, he mentioned the Lions going out and spending, and I'm looking over. I'm hard-pressed to find what it was the Lions did yesterday that Lubie was referencing. The Vikings lost Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, who also spent money on Eckler, the running back. I don't see any transactions here in the whatever it was. I mean, there's about 40 free agents listed here that all changed teams, and I see none involving the Detroit Lions. So not sure what's happening with that. But nonetheless, Lubie, very sobering thoughts from Mike Lubie Lubitz here on the program. Are you kidding me, people? Are we watching the right show? This is insane, isn't it? Where Mike Lubie Lubitz is backing Chris Greer and the moves that were and were not made. I mean, it's the old era of omission, right? Sometimes the moves you don't make turn out to be actually as fortunate as great moves and maneuvers that you do indulge in. And I don't know that any of these are really helpful, these defections for the Miami Dolphins. But if it was going to come at a cost that would have made it prohibitive to improve in any other area, then we saw the end result was not good enough to win a championship last year. And I'm not sure that the Miami Dolphins are going to necessarily improve off of these defections. But maybe they don't fall that far backwards or off the pace so that they end up not hurting too badly. Anyway, those were the sobering thoughts of one Mike Lubie Lubitz. Dave Hyde is going to join us here in a little while, and Lubie seems to have unfrozen himself
Fucking internet
with a trip to the bathroom or something. Well, what did you do there, Lubie?
No, I put on the hotspot. I just had to reset I don't know what the fuck's going on with Bluestream. The last 3 weeks has been annoying. So in the middle of my diatribe.
But yeah, I mean, you were rolling, and I was thinking, holy shit, that people are going to stand up and applaud this.
No, it's just, look, and
you of all people, the last guy that would ever defend Chris Greer or anything that the local organizations were doing that seemed to be with a little bit of a mystery to it as to what the fuck is the plan. That was the question a lot of people were asking yesterday. What is the plan?
That's the thing, is these are the teams without plans just sign people, right? The team, look again, the Falcons, like the Panthers, like the Commander, like all the teams that look, Kirk Cousins, and we talked about this. I know Kirk Cousins.
He's an amazing phenomenon. He is my favorite athlete of all time now. Nobody's made more money off the system than Kirk Cousins. With above average ability, no doubt.
He's a quarterback, but come on.
Yeah. But is he like a franchise maker at the position where everybody just, cowers in front of Kirk Cousins' agent and says, here, whatever money you want, just here's a check. Fill it out. I mean, he was having a great year according to all, that observed him last year. Mm-hmm. Statistically, you could look it up. I mean, he was having an excellent year by any quarterback standard. Minnesota was one of those teams earlier in the season when Cousins was going strongly with him that you thought, is it possible? I never consider that the Minnesota Vikings are going to win the championship. Do you?
No, they always.
When you're thinking about teams I might bet on to win the title, do you ever think, oh yeah, Minnesota? You got to consider them.
Nope.
Not in recent times. I mean, going back to what? The Purple People Eaters was the last time they were relevant at that level?
Well, that's the thing, is even when they've had great years, like the Randall Cunningham year, they always find a way to lose to a team.
They fuck it up. Yeah, of course.
Every time.
So, yeah, I mean, and this guy, he's incredible. I mean, he got the franchise tag, which was enormous. A few years in a row, didn't he? I mean, had 1-year deals, and he was constantly getting what was top dollar. I mean, the average of the top 5 quarterbacks, when I'm not sure he was in that category.
No.
Not early on. I mean, there were questions whether or not he was even of a starter caliber.
He's never been a top 10. That's the thing. Even when he puts up these years with amazing numbers, people will reel off 15 names before they get to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
He's never top 10. Never. He's always paid as a top 5 quarterback while never being a top 10. Never.
Exactly. This is a way of beating the system. It's fantastic. I mean, you see guys on jobs like this. You're wondering, how the fuck is this guy getting paid that kind of money when he's an idiot?
Everyone in management.
I'm doing the real work here. Yeah, management at a radio station. My God.
Are you kidding me?
You're getting in the fanciest cars that you can find in the parking lot. Just got a new one yesterday after driving some car for 6 months. That was in the $150,000 category. They're climbing in and out of the luxury. They're betting their brains out. You're burying the station at the same time. Incredible. Totally inept. Cousins isn't that. I mean, he's capable. I'm not sure that he's a guy that you want to bank on necessarily as that quarterback, so to speak. That geez, if you had one game to win, I mean, is the first name that pops in your head Kirk Cousins? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But man, he has milked this system, and he does it again. The Vikings wanted to keep him. I'm sure their situation is much better served by having Cousins on their roster again this year, but. He goes to the Atlanta Falcons, who is it? I mean, can they make some quantum leap forward after being sort of? I mean, you talk about subpar and underachieving. That has been the Falcons for the last many years. All of a sudden, they make a big dive into free agency, get a new head coach. They shine on Bill Belichick. Decide Bill wasn't the right guy for the job. They take what? Raheem Morris for this position. A guy that we've seen before that, I mean, did he have any overwhelming success, Raheem Morris, that would make you think, wow, can't wait to see him back in the driver's seat?
He was okay with the Bucs, but he ended up sort of falling flat.
Yeah, I mean, was he in the same category as the Todd Bowles, where you're wondering, what the hell is this guy really doing? I don't know. But nonetheless, I mean, Cousins, he has just built this system for a fortune. And now on a 4-year deal coming off a year where he suffered and incurred a serious leg injury. And he can't be young either, right, Lubie? I mean, Kirk Cousins, how old is this guy?
Oh, no, he's in his 30s.
Yeah.
He's in his mid-30s. I mean, he's been around a long time. Remember, he was in the same draft as RG3, who's been out of the league for 2 years now.
$180 million for this cat. I guess if Daniel Jones was worth $160 million, a functional quarterback that actually was performing at a reasonably high level for the last several seasons, would certainly be worth a few $1,000,000 more, no? But, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, we didn't even get into this yesterday. Russell Wilson going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers pay him like $1.2 million, the league minimum for a guy that's been in the league for the length of time that he has. And the other $38 million. Can you imagine Sean Payton? How much did he despise having this guy running his football team? Benched him for the last couple of games. Who's they're going to be their starter? This guy Stidham? Are you kidding me?
Steelers? No, I mean, they're going to go with
not
Wilson.
the Steelers. I'm talking about the Broncos.
I don't know what the fuck the Broncos are doing. I presume they're going to draft a quarterback. I mean,
holy shit! Yeah, talk about going in naked and afraid. And I would imagine. I mean, how does Russell Wilson not start over what they have at Pittsburgh right now? Why would you even bother to sign him? Just to be a backup? I can't imagine that.
No, he's going to start. I mean, or at least you're going to have open competition with Pickett and whoever else. Like, I mean, why not?
Finally, they got rid of Trubisky. Finally.
Well, and they have the Rudolph kid.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see what's happened to Russell Wilson the last 3 years. Like, because he in Seattle, and I know people like Buzz Bissinger noticed it, he was still having good numbers. Like, he was still, no one questioned his Hall of Fame status. Now, because he was so bad with Denver, people are like, what is Russell Wilson's legacy? And I'm like, what do you mean? Wasn't he great every year for like 10 years?
He was very good. Yeah.
I don't get it.
He was surprisingly good. You kept looking and wondering how the fuck he's doing it. Where, he scrambles around and then throws like a 50-yard strike down the field to some guy after buying a ton of time and escaping, any number of tackles that could have been devastating for huge losses. And he was a very clever quarterback. It seemed that way. I don't know. I mean, it really makes you wonder why people thought Pete Carroll was finished. Because I look at Pete Carroll and does Russell Wilson prosper like that? under other coaching
Oh no.
guidance? I
Look,
don't know.
Geno Smith had a
And
look.
Geno Smith was a putz. I mean, nobody wanted Geno Smith.
They
It was
became a playoff
laughable.
team.
Yeah.
Like they were supposed to be in rebuild mode. That's a team that was in rebuild mode, not the Dolphins. And
Ask any Jet fan about Geno Smith. They start laughing.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I people like. I'm just curious what Wilson is. Payton was supposed to resurrect his career, and then they hated each other.
Yeah.
Supposedly Payton's a gas bag, and no one can stand him, which is weird. I mean, you look at his Saints time, you're like, did he underwhelm? Because he had Drew Brees, who's setting every friggin' record, and they only won one Super Bowl.
Or did he make Drew Brees? That's the other question.
That's the thing. So it's like, I don't know. And everyone like is so quick to react. I don't know. I've become the sane one when I'm looking at all these moves, and I'm like, if I'm a Giant fan, I'm like, fuck, we lose Barkley, but like he's always hurt. So what are you gonna do with him? And he's great. They are vastly better with him, clearly, but he's always hurt. So how do you pay a guy like that to be always hurt? Josh Jacobs goes with the Packers. I'm like, okay, I don't know what you do with that. Like I don't know what that was the one old school always win organization that seems to be back that went and spent money.
I'm really, I understand it completely. You know, this whole idea that running backs are somewhat interchangeable, but it is kind of a surprise. I mean, especially if you were watching the NFL for many, many years, where all you ever heard was that to win in the NFL, you have to be able to run the ball and stop the run. That was it, right? You talk to any coach, you go talk to Bill Cowher, and what's he going to tell you? Well, you know what? You got to be able to run the ball and stop the run. Jimmy might tell you the same thing, Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah.
And you know, for that to be the case, to have featured running backs that clearly are a step ahead in terms of their effectiveness and their ability to do certain things that are critical, because it's not just it's like we talk about with quarterbacks, where it isn't necessarily the guy that is always throwing this strike on a line, a bomb down the field, 55 yards for a touchdown. It's a guy who can grind out 3 first downs when there are 3 minutes and change left in the ball game.
Yes,
and keep possession of the football. And listen to me, referencing the ball as the football, because you got to use the word football a lot if you're talking about football. It's the football team, the football game, the football content, whatever it is. But Tua hasn't necessarily shown that yet.
No,
he's had. I mean, the glaring, absolute red flag with Tua and the entire Miami Dolphin. Call it their culture, and all teams, have games like this. But that Tennessee game in that spot to lose like they did. And what happened there, right? You had Mike McDaniel spacing out, calling weirdo plays.
Yep.
You had Tua going 3 and out on how many successive attempts?
Yep.
When all you needed was 1 or 2 first downs, and that's
even
it.
if McDaniel's calling bad plays, defense isn't getting the job done. A great quarterback would find a way to get a first down. They really just needed 1 fucking first down. I just say Tua's a top 10 quarterback and arguably a top 5 just because of his stats and because everything he's been asked to do, he's done. He's gotten better every year. Last year, he was supposed to stay healthy. He played every game, but he still has holes in his game. I don't put him in the top 4. There's 4 to 5 guys that are clearly better than him. Yeah. Then to me, he's in that next group, and that's okay. He's still young enough to grow. But yes, he needs to get better at fourth quarter success.
He hasn't been as clutch as you would like him to be.
He needs to get better fourth quarter success, and he needs to get better at ending the game. He needs to be the guy that's like, fuck. Even if the defense is great, I'm not giving the ball to the defense. I'm ending the game right fucking here. And I agree with that. I'm not.
That's what you need. I mean, and that's a mark of a good. It's just like with the running back. I mean, there are certain running backs that get that extra they need a 3rd and 1.
Yep, they're getting that.
And where most guys would get stopped, they somehow get it.
Yes, a great running back is a difference. Like that's the thing. It's just the average to good have. I don't know if they stem the tide. I don't know what it is, but they're good enough where teams are like, all right, fuck it. Because look, Mostert, and we love Brett Tessler. Mostert, great story. And he was top 3 or 4 in all the major yards and touchdowns last year. But he's not one of these other guys, but look what he was able to do. Like he's not Josh Jacobs. He's not Aaron Jones. He's not some of these great running backs. He's not Barkley talent-wise. But he put up stats like them for a fraction of the cost. So,
and that's true around the league. The drop off is not as significant as the name value is, but nonetheless, I mean, the Giant fans, they took it pretty much in stride. Though everybody seemed to see this move coming. that they weren't able to work anything out last year. The stated goal of Barkley was to be a Giant for life.
Yeah, he wanted to be there.
Yeah, and maybe this will be one of those things that works out for Barkley also. I don't know. Seems to be a lot of anti-Eagle sentiment around.
Well, the problem
country.
is the Eagles. What made them great, and people forget this. Being a Dolphins fan, you've touched on this. We're one of the rare organizations that actually pays attention to the offensive line.
Yeah.
Around the league, they're like, well, the Eagles, look at all these moves. Yeah, but they've lost Kelsey, who's retired. I think they've lost like 3 offensive linemen in this one off season. Well,
and for some reason they had a drop off on both sides in the so-called trenches last year. That really cost them as they fell apart. It became more and more obvious that they weren't going to be able to overcome that. Which I mean, remember, just the year prior they had that defensive line was devastating. I mean, worthy of any kind of long-term recognition as you would have with the fearsome foursome or any of these. Steel Curtain, any of these big-time defensive lines. It looked like they were heading in that direction, and instead, Decimation City, as they weren't that sharp last year, and eventually crumbled under the pressure of trying to put up points with an offense that wasn't as good either. All right, good. No, nothing from Philadelphia. Sorry, Saquon. Picked the wrong place to land. I don't know that he was going to do anything with the Giants. They're kind of a mystery to me. Mike Nyman would be better equipped, but he's usually overly optimistic, no? Mike Nyman? About the possibilities of the Giants?
Yeah. I mean, look, Giant fans are just accepting the Giants are in a weird rut as an organization.
Yeah.
They just, and they jumped at giving Jones the money when they probably shouldn't have.
It was a tough spot, though. I mean, it's a similar spot the Dolphins are in. Do you really want to commit to 4 years of Tua at $180 million?
No, I'd rather not. No.
I mean, has he shown enough to make you think, wow, the next 5 years we're set with this guy? I don't know. All right, Dave Hyde's going to help us answer some of these questions. We're going to come back with Dave Hyde, the outstanding columnist for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Always a pleasure having Dave on the show. Great insights into all of the many things that are happening around town. So we'll get into that and see. He seems to be devastated that the Dolphins were decimated yesterday. Dave Hyde painting a very unflattering picture.
Yeah, it's at least the headline. I didn't read the whole article, and Dave Hyde usually has some sense with him, so I'm sure he didn't just hammer the Dolphins straight out. But the headline and the talking points were, okay, the Dolphins were rebuilding, and the Dolphins were contending. Are they rebuilding again? What is the plan? It was much in
that window of opportunity, Lubie. Is it closing or is it opening?
Yeah. I mean, but
small window, my friend.
We'll see.
Or they find themselves in dire straits. Let's see. All right, Dave Hyde. We'll find out what he has to say about all of that in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:31. Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
David, are the Dolphins evolving into a well-run franchise? Chris Greer has made some interesting moves. I mean, regardless of what they've tried to do, they win 5 games, 10 games with Brian Flores as coach and Greer as the main guy in the general manager's chair. Now, with this small little fire they had going with Xavier Howard, they managed to put that out and douse those flames before the season gets underway. What's happening with this Dolphin franchise? Is it possible that they are finally on a path to go in the right direction?
Oh, God, I hope so. How many years I mean, as a poor sports writer, having to cover mediocrity to less than mediocrity for most of 2 decades, I hope so.
Buenos dias. The cafecito is piping hot. Why not enjoy it with Defo and Lubie? It's now time for the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. Good to have you with us here on this fine Tuesday. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz, with some very sobering thoughts. Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm extremely surprised by the direction of his conversation today, as he is very much in defense of what happened with the Miami Dolphins. Meanwhile, there are bodies strewn all about town. And joining us right now to help us pick up the pieces here is Dave Hyde. Of course, the distinguished and outstanding prize-winning columnist for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Dave, not much to write about these days, huh? How are you?
Well, my over/under for Christian Wilkins leaving was at 12:10, and it was closer to 1 o'clock yesterday after the free agency at noon. So, there was 50 minutes of hope there where maybe he's not going to leave. But I just felt like I was waving goodbye to people all day. So. Not a good day for the Dolphins.
Lubie has been like a desperate Alan Dershowitz trying to defend the actions of a former president in various, civil and criminal trials that are upcoming. He's defending Chris Greer. He never does this.
I hate Chris Greer.
He says, wow, I mean, what do you want the guy to do? His hands were tied. They were strapped against the salary cap, and he's already replacing some of these guys with guys that are far more economical and not that far behind in terms of possible talent and contribution to the team. People, I sensed the thought that there's no plan there. I mean, just looking at what was being said on social media and various sites, it seemed like the fans were bewildered as to, what the fuck is going on? I mean, do we know, Dave Hyde? Is there a pattern here that we can identify with that in any way is favorable?
Sure. The pattern is, over the last 5 years, first 2 years, they traded everybody and collected draft picks. The next 2 years, they signed expensive players and traded draft picks. Now they're throwing the picks overboard because they don't have any money. So, I mean, there's the plan.
Wow.
There's your plan. They didn't have, look, if they had decided we don't have the money to sign, or these players, these contracts are too expensive, we can go cheaper and find valuable players because we've been drafting well. We got young players coming up. That would be a plan. That would be a smart way. They couldn't even give Christian Wilkins a franchise tag of $22 million for next year because they couldn't fit that under their salary cap because they've been spending so crazily the last couple of years, and everybody's applauding. Yeah, they got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey and Teron Armstead and Bradley Chubb. Isn't it great? Well, the bill came due yesterday, and you saw some good players have to leave town. Really, it came due last offseason.
Yeah.
Because they decided not to sign these guys, that's the time you really sign the guy. You don't wait till they're on the edge of free agency because any player who's made it to here, unless you really come up with a huge offer, then they go to free agency because they know that, out of 31 teams, there's going to be a couple that will throw a lot of money at you.
Lubie sounded like Mike Tannenbaum talking about the team in his final year as a GM here. Very favorable. All of these moves were shrewd and seemed to be far more than justified. Where does that leave us, in your opinion, with this team? I mean, are they facing dire straits because of these defections?
Well, the question becomes: are they going to have more talent next year than last year? And that'll be tough to do. It'll come down to maybe Lubie said, like all the decisions they got starting yesterday. The Tennessee center, who we're talking a scheme fit for the Dolphins, and maybe he is, and I don't know much about him, but the reports I read, and the 2 linebackers they signed, the first and second round picks have to come right in and play, which they haven't done always, and so it becomes their margin for error is nil this offseason, whereas in recent years they've spent so much money or had so many draft picks, they had a larger margin of error. To make the team better, they got to be almost perfect this offseason.
All right. One of those big decisions obviously involves Tua. And I don't know if Lubie was going to ask about that, but nonetheless, what's your position on this? I mean, they're going to have to give this guy a contract. It looks like they're sticking with him. There would be people and reason, to think that was favorable, and there are probably people that believe and have good reason to believe that that's going to be a huge mistake. Where do you stand on that? And is it a problem that it's still somewhat debatable, or am I, just being overwhelmingly negative here? That do we really have the guy that is worthy of that kind of distinction?
Yeah, after 4 years, if you're saying who is he, that's not the perfect scenario, is it? My stand on Tua is I would have him play on the 5th-year option. What's it, $23 million?
Yeah.
And get more information, and decide then either during the season or if he's great next year or during the next off season. My question would be this: who are you bidding against right now? When you give him the why are you giving the contract now? Has he earned it with great play? He's showed flashes of great. He's also shown streaks against good teams of being a very mediocre quarterback. So I would want more information before I marry him. But Mike McDaniel came in the door, and his besides winning, his top priority was to solve Tua. He did that. He showed you who he is. He showed this team what he can do and what he needs to do to succeed. The question becomes, does he have another step to get closer to the tier that he isn't close to right now, the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons and Joe Burrows, to sustain a run the way those guys can if for their teams. But again, I'd wait. But they're all in on Tua, and they don't want the quote distraction of not giving him the contract, I think, and so they're going to do it.
Wow.
Well, yeah, because that's because that's my question is. I'm actually all in on Tua. We've been wanting a franchise quarterback. We have one now. He's not he's not franchise enough. It's like, okay, Dolphins fans, like you're now like mincing words. The dude was top 5 in every single major quarterback category and stayed healthy for the year. That's what you asked of him. But I get it. He hasn't won a playoff game. He sort of melts down in fourth quarters. I'm not fighting that either. He's not in that top 5. He's in that top 10. Fine. Okay. But here's the thing, why not do the 5th year? Like, what is the negative? He'll then be open season. And if Kirk Cousins is getting 180, what the hell is Tua going to get? Like, because he is still only in his mid-20s. Like, people forget that. The dude's 25. Like, what is the negative to doing the 5th year option thing? Because I hear like you, Perk, a lot of the local guys are saying do the 5th year, but the national guys are like, you can't do the 5th year. The national guys I've talked to and I've read say you got to give them the contract. So what is the differentiation? Like, why would the organization be so weary of doing the 5th year thing? What's the negative from what you've surmised?
Well, just the amount of money you're going to put towards him. Now, in the short run, this year, you would actually save money against the salary cap because it will spread things out. So, could go down to $9 million as opposed to a $23 million hit, and a team needs money. So that would be for doing it. My question, I guess, there's 2 models to win as I see it. One is you have the great quarterback and you pay him a lot and he doesn't have as much talent around him. Okay, the Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
His offense isn't that good. Got great defense. You can build certain aspects of the team out, but you can't have a complete championship team the way where everything is great. Okay. Buffalo's has to follow that model too. With and Buffalo gave Kansas City its toughest game this year. They lost on a field goal basically. So that's one model, the great quarterback model, with lesser parts. And then the other way is the San Francisco model, where you have the quarterback on the cheap contract, but you have great parts around them to lift him up. And so which one are the Dolphins? Well, the past few years, they've been the cheap quarterback model. And now they give them the contract. You got the great quarterback model, where you're going to have lesser parts around them. I haven't seen Tua lift up and carry a team. I've seen him help a team and accompany a team, but against great teams, great defenses. I think his quarterback last year, or his first career, in the 70s against playoff teams, whereas against lesser teams, he's really good. Look, I see he's a good quarterback. Can he be great? You're going to be paying him to be great, and all of a sudden, with lesser parts around him, can he still be great? That's the question. If you say, well, we've had 20 years without a super quarterback, and now we have a decent one, and so let's just go 11-5 and make the playoffs, and maybe we can win a playoff game and everybody will go home happy. That's fine if that's what you want to do. If you're, and it's probably, a fantasy to say right now, oh, the Dolphins should be thinking of the Super Bowl. But I sort of, I hate to do this. There's sort of a Ryan Tannehill quality around to it, in that, as Defo alluded to, here we are going year 5, and to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what they have. Where I've seen him light up good defenses or good teams or in big games, just glimmers of this, flashes here and there. Haven't really seen it, and so until I see it, sitting on the side, I say, why commit completely to him? But that's their model, and so we'll see where it goes.
Bring back Adam Gase. I would think that would be a possibility. So Dave Hyde, we're fucked. And that'll be the headline column. It's summation of this whole Dolphin conversation, which is kind of a little bit wild. I don't know that I was expecting the whirlwind of activity that we got.
Yeah. If Tua goes on the open market, how many people are bidding for him?
That's a good question.
Given his health, given his flashes of greatness sometimes, and yet struggles against good teams, and I don't want to put it all on him. Some of that's the offense too. But if you're paying big, and we don't know what the contract's going to look like. I'm curious to see when they extend. What do they mean by? But all of a sudden, you're saying this quarterback can, like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, carry a team to the AFC Championship game, and they get there. You're saying we can get to the Super Bowl. Can he do that? That's what you're going to be paying him to do, and with lesser talent, can he do that? So that's sort of the hesitation. My hesitation on now. Again, if you say, hey, let's go like last year, it's a fun year, go 11-6, we'll make the playoffs, and hopefully we'll win a game one of these years, and that'll be great. That's fine. If that's what you want to do.
You don't want your fans getting frostbite in Kansas City, like happened last year, because you were sloppy in the stretch.
See that coming?
We all did.
They got 60,000 fans going into sub-zero weather.
Yes.
Oh yeah, everything will be perfect. Everybody's worried about the players. Well, don't worry about the players. The players will be fine. They got all sorts of trainers and equipment ready for them. But the
fans were having their fingers and toes cut off. Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad.
Pretty amazing. Yeah, there was a story just this week about some of these fans had to have amputations. A word that I unfortunately came across a few weeks back in my own experience. But It didn't happen, and but with these guys, yeah, they ended up losing toes and fingers. The NFL experience always worth pursuing. Dave Hyde, our special guest here.
When the Dolphins don't get the home field advantage, right there. That
was it.
Exactly. People lose limbs.
The home field advantage.
They led them straight into a frostbite situation. They thought they were in the movie Alive. All right, Dave. Louis wants to get into the heat. I did want to ask you something on the Panthers, though, because we used to have a caller, and he was a very astute hockey guy. He was a bit extreme in his opinions. We called him Mike the Goldie hater. He hated Steve Goldie Goldstein, constantly condemning him with a scathing indictment that he was nothing more than a shill for the team, and he was there to hide and cover up for all of their flaws and shortcomings. One of which was the employment of one Dale Talon, who was here for years and was a very well-respected guy. And I guess, was he worthy of commanding that respect? He seemed like he was kind of distinguished. Whenever I had any, which were maybe a couple of times in the years that he was here, I came across an interview situation with Dale Talon, whether it was a group thing or one-on-one, and it seemed okay, right? What he said seemed to make sense. But in the short time that this Bill Zito has been in his place, has it not been remarkable, the difference in the way the organization is functioning? What do you think? Was Mike the Goldie hater right all along? Not so much about Goldie being a shill, but
Dale Talon.
About Dale Talon being a stiff.
Well, real quick on Dale Talon, he had everything up and working in his first stint with the Panthers, and then you remember he had the rug yanked out from under him by, where Tom Rowe became general manager. Remember that brief?
Oh yeah, that's right.
And he traded, and he got rid of a lot of talented players. So then they brought Talon back, and it didn't work out. He couldn't recreate the magic. And so, real short, and this goes to the Dolphins too. Is they bring in Bill Zito. Remember, Bill Zito was going to be. I'm drawing a blank on the Hall of Fame coach they hired that got it to
the guy from Chicago. Now I can't remember.
Yeah. Quenneville. Joel Quenneville.
Yeah. Joel Quenneville. And he was going to, it was Quenneville's team. And all of a sudden, that whole mess happens, and Zito takes over. And it shows you what one guy, how he can change the franchise. One guy. You get that right guy in that position, he can change. He's been magic. He's made so many good moves. I was out there last week and wrote a column on Zito when Gustav Forsling, who they picked off waivers, signed an 8-year contract because of how good he's been. And you go down the deals or signings: Verhaeghe, Kachuk, Sam Reinhart, Brandon Montour, Sam Bennett. All these guys who are making this season and made the end of last season. Paul Maurice hiring him and changing the whole system from a flashy, fun offense to a playoffs, a team that can win in the playoffs. That was Zito. Everything he's done has worked. And so, again, it's a lesson that you get. One guy can change a franchise. One guy coming in making decisions. And for 20 years, the Dolphins haven't had that guy. And for 20 years, the Panthers didn't have that guy.
Nope. A lot of teams don't.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, okay, boom! All of a sudden, all the moves make sense. Everything works together, and they're one of the favorites. A handful of favorites or possibles to win the Stanley Cup right now.
Well, look, it's interesting to see an organization that we kept hearing the young guys are coming. The young guys are coming too. They had the young guys. They had that great year. They fall on their face against the dreaded Lightning. And Zito's like, all right, that's it. And in Panther world, we would have just been happy, right? They would have leaned into Huberdeau. They would have tried to fill holes. Zito's like, nope. He's like, this did not work. We're doing 180, gets rid of the star, gets a young star who has more time, is more fitting of what works in the playoffs, a leader, a guy that by word and by play will harness the team in the playoffs, the opposite of what Huberdeau. They then go, even though the guy has a broken sternum, go to the Stanley Cup Finals And then instead of resting on his laurels, again, very Panthers, he's like, okay, we now have the basis. Let's go tighten up the defense. Let's go get more physical, because we're more physical than we were, but we're still not physical enough. Vegas beat the crap out of them in that Stanley Cup Finals. They're like, that's not happening again. He doubles down. He goes and makes tons of moves, small, smart moves in the offseason, and takes a team that's an A seed or whatever the hell seed they were into the Stanley Cup to being not only a President Trophy contender like they were a couple years ago, but a team that guys want to be traded to, and that's the only team that they'll be traded to. Like, and there's no doubt, if you watch, I'll be at these bars and there's the NHL Network on and I'll watch it. All they talk is Panthers. And it's like, what the hell's going on? Like, the basis of the organization, it reminds me of the Heat, where they're not going to stand pat. We're happy we're winning, but we're going to win it all, and we're going to expect to win it all every single year.
Yeah, they look with Zito making, if he can stay hot like this, making the news. And to your point on people talking about the Panthers, it is odd. I have friends who really aren't hockey fans at all. Oh yeah, I'm watching the Panthers now. It tells you what a winner. Doug McClain constantly tells the story. He was in Delray Beach at a sports bar, and he asked them to put the Panthers game on. And the waiter said, sorry, it's not football season. And so I think it's shifting here now, where it tells you what winning can do. Go to the Stanley Cup, that run can do, and having a sustained run. They had to come back after doing that and do it again, and do it for a few years to build up the interest in the team. It just can't be like the Marlins, win one, make everybody happy, then it's all gone by the first pitch the next year. So, and again, that comes back. It started really with Zito making a lot of moves and what one guy can do in a franchise.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, the moves that this guy's made, and bold moves. When you thought it would be time, everybody would have been content if he just did nothing, but went out there and made a lot of changes anyway. Dave, always a pleasure.
Hey, Defo, 1 point. Huberdeau was in town last week. I went out to the game on Saturday, and I hadn't heard much from him. I looked up his stats: 15 goals last year and 9 goals this year. All of a sudden, he's not playing with Barkov, and you took a guy that's now in his 30s, and so if there was ever any question, should they get Tkachuk or not? I mean that was decided immediately when the trade was made, but what's happened is confirmed too.
Yep. Kind of tangibly, I mean, this was one you could see where you talk about changing the culture and the approach of the team. I mean, you could really see that manifest itself on the ice and in the play of the franchise once Tkachuk got in there and sort of altered their mental state, or so it seemed. Certainly, I mean, his physicality, what wasn't there before when we were talking about, hey, shoot the puck, Kozlov, shoot the puck. Unbelievable. I mean, who wants to be a finesse team? Dave, always a pleasure, my friend. Did you think that Barbie got jobbed by any chance? No? In the Oscars? Should it have been up there in the same caliber as Oppenheimer, which walked away with virtually everything?
Well, I tell you what, the Barbie was a movie about a male-dominated world. And who was the star of the show? Was Ken at the Oscars, right? It was Ken.
Yes.
So talk about life imitating art, right? Ken gets all the headlines of Ryan Gosling dancing and all that stuff.
Right.
Well, that's perfect, isn't it? So,
the woman wasn't even invited. I mean,
they missed the point.
right.
She was at the Pantages Theater thinking that the ceremonies were there. All right. Thanks, Dave. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for being with us.
All right, Defo. See you guys.
Thanks,
all right. We have to run here, Lubie. I'm going to be a guest on the Pete Shepard Show on the Tony Bruno Sports Network here in a few minutes. Don't want to stiff those guys. So we will see you guys 1 o'clock from Grandpa's, right?
Yes, 12:30 from Grandpa's. We'll be
12:30. Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. We'll try to make post time for that. All right. We'll see you there. Mike Lubie Lubitz, and we'll see you guys later on as we leave you on that.
The time.
8:57.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.